so we only have like 26 minutes, so I wanna run through here. Did everybody get the packet I sent out last night? Melissa, would you like the printed
I got
version? Oh, you do? You came with a printed version?
Yes.
I'm impressed. So I just wanna spin through, we have the, financials from the bookkeeper, but I also think people, enjoy the one that, Mike does, which is the second document in, that's colorful, that takes it just as our budget is written and gives you what we budgeted. Then we revised the budget, if you remember, we flipped things around, and then what our actuals were. I didn't know if folks had questions or concerns. There are a couple places that we most definitely way overspent, but I think Mike did a really nice job controlling the rest of the expenditures so that we came in a pretty good place. So it's not over 100, which is
No.
good.
No, amen. In the Q3, the middle column says Q3 revised. So in Q3, we had a meeting and we moved allocations in places, but at the end of the day, it was break even. And so that's the actual, everything that we, at that time, we revised the different numbers. So 82% on revenue, and most of that's Electra, no longer receiving the annual lease payments. And we were just able to cut in other areas the expenses to make 95%, because we did have big overages with mostly like security for the plant during the shutdown.
Questions there?
Just a comment,
Yeah,
when you always come in under budget, that's a good indication to me that you've really done a good job making the budget, because you've given yourself what you need and then done what you have to do to keep saving money. It's great.
so, we don't have questions there. The, accounts payable is the next colorful page. So these are bills that we've incurred that Mike suggests that we should maybe pay. I've looked at them, I think they look fine. I don't see anything out of the ordinary. I do know that, for one, Mike has done a lot of work to try to keep our vendors actually sending us bills on a regular basis, which is really important, especially as we begin to really pay attention to cash flow. Do you have any questions about the suggested payables?
Just one, do we have any here? We don't have an aging, because it looks like we don't need one. We're current.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this exact template or this exact sheet you see, I
Yeah.
send her Sophie every month, and it shows. But when we have our quarterly meetings, we approve the quarterly meetings.
So I do want to highlight the travel expense. And just, I think we want to keep an eye on that because, Mike brought up the idea that we might be in a better position to look at transportation, a different option for transportation as we get further into the year. I think we want to just kind of keep an eye on that because he is traveling a lot for us. So are we good with recommending? Yes, good. All right. I like the fact that we do things so formally. So just keep in mind when we look at the next sheet, which we're talking about the review of cash and investments, the two tools to do that are George's asset management letter, which gives current information, and then our our investment allocation, which gives information as of the end of last calendar year, so December 31. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. performance is as of December 4th, 31. The sheet is as of the 17th. So what I take from this is we've asked our investment people to position us as best they can to continue to trim in case we need money. And I think that they're working their way through that. I'd like to see our cash grow, but our ladder the ladder is not coming due in a way for us to do that, so we will have to trim. Questions?
Sophie, on the coastal fixed income diversification, which at some point is gonna revert or has already reverted to MWS, right?
Yeah, I think
We got a new guy, so.
Yeah.
we keep getting new guys.
Yeah, we got a new guy, so that name's stuck to, but yes, it's already.
Okay, so, I noticed we have a bond fund, we have some exposure to a bond fund, which I'm sure has lost value because of the way the rates are going. I'm guessing the other bonds are all individual purchases. I mean, we may not be able to answer that because we don't have our guy here with us this morning, but my hope is that we get out of the funds and ladder individual bond maturities, and we know to keep them short, at least for the time being, because we don't know when we're gonna need the money sooner rather than later. But do we have exposure there that we're concerned about?
So we do have exposure. I know that some of these are not individuals. I know that some of these are funds. But we can talk to them about that. I think that what they've been trying to do is to convert to cash as they can when it makes sense, when we're not gonna lose our shares.
Yeah.
Do people agree with that? Go on. I'll let Mike try to deal with folks, because I seem to scare off our investment people. Still trying to find out why. I think I'm taking. So, Mike and I'll have that conversation. We'll also kind of set up. I think we need them to come back when we have a better idea of what's gonna happen and set up an actual strategy. All right. Any questions about George's? This is where we would review the asset management letter. Do you have any in-depth questions for George? We know that we'll go through this with the full board, but the only thing that I flagged, and I think this is more of a discussion for the waste flow committee, is we've stopped the dividends. But we still have Bangor, Hampton, Orono that are not gaining the revenue from commercial waste. So we've only calculated that for October. I think we had talked about having a meeting with the town and then the towns, and then we decided the timing wasn't right for that. But I do think we should have a meeting with the towns to talk about, does that really end because it's a revenue loss? Or does that continue? I don't know that that's tied to dividends. I understand that the dividends for the commercial waste would end as of that October date, but I don't know that that's a unilateral decision that MRC can just make.
And the idea was that we were gonna have everything figured out by this point. That's why we kind of had that in date.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering if we wanna approve what's here but also set a meeting with out my MRC hat, and I probably send somebody different to it, to have the conversation about revenue loss, because I feel like we unilaterally purloined the commercial waste from these communities. We probably shouldn't just unilaterally stop payments. On the other hand, perhaps an explanation to the communities about why we would stop payments, they might ultimately see a long-term benefit to do that.
Stepping back from the table, I think that would be appreciated at the municipal level.
Yeah.
Just that communication.
So would you bring that up? Thank you. I like setting up other people to talk, yes.
What was the rationale? Was it because we weren't gonna get enough from our communities and we needed to assure some more?
No,
Why
so.
would we extend that facility to?
So understand that for the communities that you're talking about, that commercial waste is their municipal waste. Has always been part of those four, Hamden included. It's Hamden, Orono, Brewer, and Bangor. The commercial waste is their municipal waste. They pay dues on it. They have paid tip fee on it. There's a whole flow control that makes that go through the municipalities into the plant. So when there was discussion, when we were doing our, it was part of our guaranteed actual tonnage before, so if we didn't supply it, we would get hit with penalties. And after that, when we were doing the estimated tonnage, we all asked, are we, is it everything? For me, it's the university. I have university tonnage, town tonnage, and then my residential collection. And all of that goes together to make Orono's 3,750 ton. So when, and it's the way it's always been done. I mean, that's the other thing is we permit, people have to get licenses to pick up commercial waste in our community, we permit it, we pay the bill. We were paying the bill at PERC, we were paying the bill at Coastal. We would get that, we would then turn around that bill. They would pay fees associated to be able to tip under the town's contract. So, and quite honestly, we're all using the flow control ordinance that MRC created 20-something years ago.
To the
So,
benefit of MRC.
to the benefit,
facility.
yeah.
I mean, that was the whole point of flow control, was to enhance the volume of waste going to the facility for economic reasons, so. It was supposed to be a win-win.
and then when the facility, when we got to April 1st and the facility was not accepting waste, so this is my town manager hat on right now, not my finance committee hat. I don't know about other communities, but I got a call at like 7 o'clock at night saying, woo-hoo, we're so excited, we've got a deal to be able to take care of your waste, and we had to give Pine Tree / Kinsella your commercial waste, so it just all disappeared. It can go wherever it wants to go, it's a violation of my ordinance. MRC just made that deal, and when I maybe flipped out a little bit, I was told there was nothing I could do about it. Well, there is, it's to legal action, but that, in the best interest of all of the communities, I needed to do that. So the resolution at that point to keep Bangor, Kathy, Brewer, Orono, Hamden, the host community, relatively appeased, we came up with this, you make us whole for the revenue we've lost, and we'll continue to pay dues on that amount of money, that amount of trash that is not necessarily going through our system. So I pay dues on commercial waste that may or may not flow into
think it does not.
A lot of it does not
No,
flow into
most
our
of it, there's a
system.
small, so we do see commercial waste, but it's a very, very small percentage. It's from the smaller haulers. And Hamden did eliminate their process back in the end of 19, where we actually billed their commercial waste directly.
Yeah.
So they no longer have
But,
the.
so it is
Somewhere.
an issue that has come up. I think there was lack of conversation on the instituting of it. I just feel really strongly if I have the ability to say there should be some communication. I think that with my MRC hat on, I think we should be working really hard to make the argument that ultimately these are communities that need this to work and have some of the biggest risk. And maybe we should take one for the team. I don't know. That's my MRC hat. I don't know how I feel as a manager.
So that's why we're sending the waste flow, it's kind of waste flow.
And it also gets it out of like me.
Or you avoid some conflicts as well, which is good.
So, that would be my suggestion as far as the financial side, is that we recommend that waste flow actually have those conversations with the communities. And if ultimately waste flow comes back and says we really need to make them whole, we would come back and fill that in. Because at this point, we're deferring those until we've got some liquidity. My issue with that is when we said that, we said defer till liquidity or June 30th, never thinking that the two would. But by June 30th, I think we all need to have our receivable cleaned off our books. I'm just with the manager.
Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Some,
Yeah, I think, and this isn't probably the right setting, but I think more history is needed on it, like numbers and all that stuff.
George has lots of numbers. George tracks and has a methodology for how we created it. So, but Aaron, I think what you'll do is just suggest that for waste flow, and then you can deal with it in that form.
Okay.
Because you and Tony are on waste flow, right?
I'm not on waste flow.
Oh,
Yeah.
He might be here some by the end of the meeting.
all right. So, we just have a few more minutes, and I'd like to move on just to look at the budget. There really haven't been any budget changes since the annual meeting. If you look, I've given you the consolidated version of this, which is what we adopted last year. See, I have questions. We are proposing that you look at, on page 7, there's budget A, and on page 8, there's budget B. Our suggestion is we would adopt budget A, which is MRC owning municipal waste, I've got it wrong, I have an S, it's MWS, not MSW, right?
Thanks, Mark.
Which shows us moving forward without a partner. And then if we get a private partner, we would look at a different budget at that point. That is our recommendation. This budget does not have major changes in it. I have added some room for what I think inflation will hit, but also we're going to evaluate our director in July, so there is a room in that budget line to work with that process. If we don't give raises, then we wouldn't expend it, but I think it's important to be there so that we don't have to do budget adjustments. questions?
I think we're assuming here that tip fee revenue and tip fee expenses, assuming we don't have a problem, are a wash.
Yes. I
Okay,
mean,
and
those are.
I know
so-
you've been
Well,
working very hard to
I
make
keep
that
a
happen.
ledger for MWS, and that's where those would be.
Right.
Technically, it's.
But we own it, so it would wash into us
Right.
anyway.
Right. This, what you're seeing right here is our regular operational budget without,
But the idea being that the tip fee will cover the cost of the
The disposal.
fee disposal.
yes,
tipping.
Okay,
Absolutely.
then as long as that.
Yeah, so we're not creating a MRC liability over here where it's a wash,
Got it.
supposed to be.
Yep.
Yeah.
That make sense?
Yep.
Okay. I got what you were trying to say.
Yeah, I know.
Other questions? Are you okay with this format again, the more consolidated format?
In the budget, we're recommending is A.
We're gonna recommend A, because I don't see like a formal final closing happening in the next 7 minutes, so I think we should go with A.
And does permanent parking only really mean permanent parking over? That was the last spot at the school out here. And then somebody left and then kept.
no, I made a spot, I made a new spot.
Did you where that snow?
Like I made a
was?
spot
Yeah.
too.
I was
Yeah.
gonna-
No, you've just deprived a college student of overnight parking, but that's all right. I'm gonna guess they don't need it right now.
They better be glad.
They better be. All right, so are we good with that budget? This has been like the easiest finance committee meeting ever. I think maybe I should rethink my position on our meeting. And then under other business at the back of the packet, I included, I wanted to just include our receivables so that you guys got a chance to see that, overall, our, the collections for tip fee are the big long one. When you look, we just have a couple of folks. We have one private entity that is behind, and I know Mike is working that. And then when I see 60 days with little tiny towns, that doesn't really bother me because they tend to have a little bit different pay process. But I would just mention, for the benefit of anybody watching, that having our members pay their bills in a timely fashion is critical for MRC being able to continue in this position of paying the bill, paying for tip fee and staying current and not wasting our money and not needing more cash flow. So I appreciate that. The second one is an aging summary of dues that are outstanding. So we have a total of like $7,000, almost $8,000 worth of dues that are currently, actually $8,000 worth of dues that are outstanding. Again, French Borough got lined out because they actually had an overpayment, so it's a credit, not a debit. And 1 to 30 days, we don't have anybody that's over 30 days. So again, people paying their bills is critical to the operation working. And I just thought you'd be interested in that. And my final thought is that although I put the packet together, again, I couldn't be the treasurer without all of Mike's efforts. He's just done an incredible job, and when Karen called to ask if I would do this again, my comment was only if Mike continues doing what he's doing, because he makes it a reasonable job. I don't think George even spoke during the finance committee meeting. That's a first.
George, you got anything you want to add?
Sounded good, maybe the half-hour format forces us to focus a little more.
Indeed.
So unless anybody has an issue, I would call recess for the next 2 minutes. Or adjourn.
Good.
Sound good?